Paz. Paz, ¿me escuchas? Paz, ¿me escuchas? Paz. Paz.
Can you hear us? ¿Estamos hearing?
Hola, ¿ahí me escuchas?
Ahí sí te escuchamos, Paz.
Ya, súper.
Entonces, ahora necesito que por otra pestaña veas al Lama Garchen y por esta solo mantengas el audio y tu computador con audio bajito.
Acá estoy escuchando a Garchen. Paula, ¿me escuchas bien?
Sí, te escuchamos perfecto.
So, Dharma friends, today we are meeting, we are together today, and we are actually together today. So what you see is the illusory body. So it is something that you can actually see and you can hear the voice, but just like a rainbow in the sky. And that's really how all the
podemos escucharnos y vernos. Así es como son los maestros espirituales también, como un cuerpo ilusorio de la iluminación del cuerpo, palabra y mente. Esta es la semilla del verdadero maestro espiritual. Y el cuerpo físico que vemos de la manifestación de los maestros es impermanente, transitorio, imperfecto. Y pensamos que solo ese es el cuerpo real con el cual nos podemos conectar, pero eso es un error. Y así es. Y este cuerpo que ahora vemos de manera virtual, es así también como los maestros, nos conectamos con los maestros, no es necesario la presencia física. No deben pensar que esta imagen que ven en la pantalla es falsa, porque no podamos tener contacto físico. Porque la verdad que ambos tienen una base ilusoria. Voy a aprovechar de hacer un resumen de lo que estaba diciendo. Estaba hablando del cuerpo de manifestación de los maestros, que su naturaleza también es de naturaleza ilusoria. Entonces ahora que tenemos la oportunidad de recibir enseñanzas de esta manera virtual, es así como un poco como uno percibe el cuerpo del maestro. Estamos recibiendo las enseñanzas, lo estamos viendo, pero en realidad no lo podemos tocar. Ese es un buen ejemplo que nos estamos aprovechando de esta realidad virtual ahora para cómo debemos visualizar el cuerpo del maestro. Y que en el fondo no quiere decir que porque no lo podamos tocar no existe. De hecho, nos estamos conectando ahora a través de esta pantalla, lo estamos viendo y estamos recibiendo sus enseñanzas y su energía.
And my friends, today I'm giving you an introduction to the 4 kayas of the Guru, and it is said that the Buddha himself,
de las 4 cuerpos del Gurú.
Within all the Buddhas,
En todos los Budas estos kayas están contenidos. Están todos presentes en la mente. Entonces, debido a la dualidad de nuestra mente, es que estas cualidades de los distintos kayas se pueden manifestar. Pero todos estos 4 kayas están contenidos en la propia mente. Sin este yo y sin esta mente dual, los 4 kayas están completamente presentes y contenidos en nosotros. Es la dificultad que tenemos para reconocer nuestra propia mente como la de un Buda y con estos kayas presentes en nosotros. La esencia vacía es el Dharmakaya. Está hablando de las 3 manifestaciones de los cuerpos Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya y Nirmanakaya, que están los 3 presentes en nuestra propia mente. Y ahora vamos a ser introducidos en estos 4 cuerpos del Gurú, o 4 kayas del Gurú.
정부 달라라자 송내들이 나 시 라콜 코아지 나 제는 무슨 소소 이만이나 됐은 걸 일단 그들이 추탕체 그런 혼대인이가 거성을 놓니 서로를 도사요 말이 혼대인이가 거성 강이 보아잡기요리 혼대인이가 참기요리 대고 도대체는 우리랑 조금 많이 봐오 아니 세티 답이 처럼 따라들이 저소 사지 답이 잡도 따라 차들이 조지지 조지가 사지지 저다버리 조지가 코아지 처럼 따라해 이따가 뒤고 차가 조지지 강들이 마저와들 다지 이지를 마저와리 다지 이지 생수 동물 다지니 요 말이 zok을 찾는 인지 샤이오에 이 생을 때들이 zok조 말이 zok을 봐도 뭐 저거리 봐도 뭐 자요는 그들이 봐도 뭐 오빠 자리에서 때리기 그거래 이런 거니 보면 나는 동반이지 매소 세미는 이 배보리 이게 뒤치는 또 생득적이 막 인지해 봐 새로 다니니 봐 사실 대응을 두지는 이제는 그것은 안 체제들이 어떤 게임을 소망이 나가서는 탑성을 지어 하고 거기 애들이 되다 랑가 마토가 가면 다 그지야 시켜요 그 상이 떨어들이 랑 센터로 가서 상황 어떻게 하고 그러지
So we are also introduced to the
Los 4 kayas contenidos en la propia mente. Los maestros han dado enseñanzas en eso, del linaje Drikunkayu, Dharmaratsa. En el camino quíntuple del Mahamudra dice que cuando realizas que todo lo que aparece es de la naturaleza de la deidad, y que todo lo que aparece y todos los fenómenos tienen la naturaleza de estos kayas. Y nada trasciende a estos kayas. Y esta es la naturaleza de todos los seres también. Tanto los que son liberados, que son los seres, y tanto los que liberan, que son los budas, tienen la misma naturaleza. Y el punto acá es reconocer que no hay dualidad y diferencia entre uno mismo y los demás. Porque hay distintos cuerpos, distintas manifestaciones que nos confundimos pensando que hay distintas formas. La vacuidad que está contenida en un objeto es la misma. Ok, entonces acá Acá está explicando el tema de la vacuidad según el maestro del maestro del linaje Trikunkayu, y estaba diciendo entonces que si bien uno percibe, por ejemplo, pone el ejemplo de una vasija que está vacía, esa misma vacuidad es la misma presente en una y otra vasija, no es que cambie. Entonces solamente porque tenemos esta confusión de percibirnos distintos o separados del resto, es que se nos aparece o se nos manifiesta la realidad de distintos cuerpos, como son estos kayas, que nos van a explicar ahora, que serían estos 4 kayas del maestro. Pero que a un nivel último nos damos cuenta que si nosotros reconocemos que no hay una separación entre nuestra propia mente, o no hay una separación entre los que van a ser liberados, por decirnos a nosotros, y los budas, que son los que nos liberan, entendemos que estos kayas están todos contenidos en la propia mente, y que no hay una distinción entre mi mente o conciencia y la de los demás. Entonces, eso es hablando en un nivel último, de realidad última. Pero de realidad convencional, como percibimos la realidad de manera dual, es que se nos aparecen, ¿cierto?, las manifestaciones como separadas. Y es por eso que nos van a explicar ahora esto de los 4 kayas. Pero que en un nivel último, esos 4 kayas que aparecen como manifestaciones del maestro, del gurú, están, cuando la mente está no dualizada, están contenidas en nuestra propia mente. Otra idea que dijo era que eso mismo era lo que experimentábamos cuando hacíamos visualización con deidades, que aparecíamos primero como un cuerpo separado de la deidad, pero después a través de la etapa de generación, completación y disolución, la deidad y nosotros ya se disolvía esa separación y quedábamos todos en una unicidad de la vacuidad que todo lo abarca.
So, for example, the elder and also a person's body consists of the 5 elements. So all of that is Nirmanakaya. Everything that is composed of the 5 elements, the outer universe, one's own body is Nirmanakaya. There are 3 main kinds of Nirmanakayas. There is the manifold Nirmanakaya, there is the incarnated Nirmanakaya, and then there is the created Nirmanakaya. And then they each perform their various activities. So the outer universe consisting of the 5 elements by nature is all Nirmanakaya. And so then the sky or the space is the Dharmakaya. And then what appears as rainbows and clouds in the sky, the clouds bearing rain, all of that is the nature of the Sambhogakaya. One's own body is the Nirmanakaya. And then there is the pure illusory body, which is the Nirmanakaya. So the form is the Nirmanakaya, and the speech is the Sambhogakaya. So from the appearance of form, a Lama, for example, a teacher, expresses words. So with the speech, he expresses words. And in the context of the Guru, therefore, the Guru's body is the Nirmanakaya, and the speech is the Sambhogakaya. Because with the speech, the Guru explains the different stages of practice according to the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana, and the generation stage in the secret mantrayana, and so forth. So this speech coming from the Guru's mouth is the Sambhogakaya. And the Guru's mind is the Dharmakaya. Mind itself is Dharmakaya. So one person actually is the same as the entire outer universe. And so this outer universe, there's this large planet, and there's the sky and the clouds and the rainbows and so on. All of this appearance is the manifold Nirmanakaya. And temporarily, sentient beings perceive these appearances, the appearance of the outer world, in a dualistic manner. And they are so habituated to this confused perception that things appear to possess a true concrete reality. So anything that appears actually is a Buddha activity. For example, the flowers and the trees and so forth, whatever appears brings incredible, limitless benefit to all the sentient beings. Lord Jigten Sumden had said in the Gongchik, everything that is done in the field of knowable things is done by Buddha. So in brief, anything that appears in this world that serves the benefit and happiness of sentient beings is by nature Buddha. And so also the 5 elements are therefore Buddha. So it is said that the 5 elements on the outer level by nature are the 5 female Buddhas or the mothers. And the 5 afflictive emotions in the mind of a person in actual nature are the 5 wisdoms. So in this way, whatever appears, all outer appearances and one's inner mind together are the union of the 5 Buddha families, Yap and Yum. So when the 5 afflictive emotions become purified, their true nature is the 5 Buddhas. And when the 5 outer elements mature, they become the 5 female Buddhas. So in this way, the entire outer universe is Buddha, is Nirmanakaya. All phenomena have the nature of the 3 Kayas. They are primordially pure. In Dzogchen, it is referred to as this original purity, fundamentally pure, pure in the basis. The Buddha himself also said, all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. However, they are obscured by adventitious stains, but when these stains are cleared away, all beings are actual Buddhas. So this adventitious stain is this dualistic perception of self and other. When you meditate and look at your mind, then you see it's space-like nature. And then, for example, you meditate in this space-like nature, and then a person comes along, and then instantly this dualistic perception of self and other awakens again, and you think, oh, here he is coming. And so this is the grasping, the fixation to the true existence of various outer and inner appearances. And this leads to this dualistic perception, this holding things to be true. And then due to that dualistic perception, all kinds of thoughts arise in our mind, virtuous and unvirtuous thoughts. And then the mind becomes attached to happiness and has an aversion against suffering. And so that is all because we cling to our perception of the true concrete existence of appearances. And this is a very deep imprint that grows ever deeper and stronger. And it is due to this deep imprint that things seem to be so real. So this imprint itself by nature is actually just like an ice block. It doesn't actually inherently exist. Some people think that, oh, there's this planet, this world, and it's it is real, it really exists, but actually not at all. Actually, constantly, every night, every day, all the time, one world, one planet collapses and a new one is formed. And this is the same with our planet. And those planets go through phases of coming into being, abiding, and destruction. So also our planet came into existence, and then it appears that way for however many tens and thousands of years, but in the end, it will also fall apart. Also the sun and the moon, everything will collapse. Everything is a compounded phenomenon. Everything is just like an illusion. And so this actually is the description of a Nirmanakaya, which literally means emanation body. And emanation in itself means that it's something that is false. It's not the real thing. And it only appears, it emanates, it appears temporarily, but it's not the ultimate thing. But this is what we call a Nirmanakaya, or an emanation body.
Entonces está explicando acá el cuerpo, el primer cuerpo, el cuerpo de emanación, el Nirmanakaya, que básicamente lo que hace es una emanación de algo que aparece, pero que aparece de manera temporal, porque está sujeto a la transitoriedad y a la no existencia inherente, ¿sí? De lo que lo posee. Entonces acá está, Rinpoche está explicando el Nirmanakaya, que lo pensemos como es el universo, ¿sí? Con todos los elementos que lo componen el Nirmanakaya. Por ejemplo, todos los planetas, todo lo que está contenido en el universo son cosas que efectivamente uno las puede percibir o aparecen, las podemos medir, las podemos detectar, ¿sí? Los 5 elementos, pero todo ello es de una naturaleza transitoria, que no tiene una existencia inherente. Y por lo tanto, por eso se le llama el Nirmanakaya el cuerpo de emanación. Si bien aparece, no tiene la capacidad de sostenerse, no tiene la capacidad de existir por sí mismo. ¿Sí? Esa es como la forma del Nirmanakaya. Cuando pensamos en el Dharmaka, piensen en el Nirmanakaya siempre compuesto por elementos, por los 5 elementos. ¿Sí? Cuando pensamos en el Dharmakaya, pensamos en algo un poco más sutil, como podrían ser un arco iris, ¿cierto? Y que aparece como un cuerpo más ilusorio, ¿sí? Esto traducido al maestro, el cuerpo físico es el Nirmanakaya, es el cuerpo de emanación. La palabra del maestro es considerada el Sambhogakaya, ¿sí? Y el Sambhogakaya, a través de esta palabra, el maestro nos puede explicar los distintos caminos, las distintas prácticas, etcétera, etcétera. Y la mente del maestro se considera el tercer cuerpo, que es el Dharmakaya, que todo lo pervade. Y también nosotros así, si lo pensamos en nosotros mismos como personas, también podemos ver que todas las apariencias o todo nuestro universo, todo lo que nosotros manifestamos son como apariencias, ¿sí? El punto es que nosotros nos identificamos con ellas y creemos que las apariencias existen de manera real, debido a que las estamos percibiendo de una manera dual. Esto es lo que se llama la percepción confusa. ¿Sí? Entonces es como si nosotros creyéramos que eso posee una realidad, una esencia en concreta. Entonces, esa es la explicación más o menos de los tres cuerpos y cómo los tres cuerpos se traducen en el maestro. Y por eso dice que todo lo que aparece es de la actividad de un Buda. Todo lo que se manifiesta y que, como lo plantea Jigten Sunggon, y que es de beneficio para los seres, tiene la naturaleza del Buda. También los 5 elementos poseen la naturaleza del Buda. De hecho, cosas que nos puedan aparecer como aparentemente negativas, como son las 5 emociones aflictivas, cuando estas son trascendidas y son percibidas en su naturaleza última, ¿sí? Se transforman en las 5 sabidurías. Eso es a nivel último. Y también dijo que se transforman o emanan las 5 Budas femeninas. Creo que se refería a los fenómenos externos, ahí no lo pesqué muy bien. Entonces dice que a esto es lo que se refiere con la unión. Cuando se rompe la dualidad, todo se transforma y se manifiesta en la unión de las familias de Buda, que se llama el Yakyum. Eso es importante, el mensaje que dio esto de cuando uno sale de la dualidad en la manera en que uno percibe las emociones aflictivas, estas son purificadas y se transforman en las 5 sabidurías. Cuando uno deja de percibir la realidad externa como dual, estas se manifiestan como los 5 Budas femeninos. Eso fue lo que y que todo en esencia es puro, y por lo tanto todos en esencia, todos los seres somos puros, aun cuando estemos temporalmente oscurecidos, que no podemos ver nuestra verdadera naturaleza. Se está refiriendo acá a esta percepción dualística que tenemos entre vernos separados entre el yo y los demás, pero que cuando entramos en estado de meditación nosotros podemos experimentar la unicidad, o sea, la inexistencia inherente de estas realidades duales como separadas, se diluyen. Y ahí es donde reconocemos la naturaleza pura. Lo que pasa es que normalmente en la mente dual creemos que son ciertas y entonces generamos pensamientos, nos identificamos con los pensamientos y si nos apegamos a estos porque nos gustan o desarrollamos aversión cuando nos causan sufrimientos. Estamos en este aferramiento o sobreidentificación y esa huella está tan fuertemente instalada en nuestra conciencia que es así como se instala esta percepción dual. Pero esta en realidad no existe, es como un bloque de hielo. ¿Sí? El hielo no tiene una capacidad de existir por sí mismo.
There is a pure and an impure aspect. And so what makes the impure become pure? It is when we purify our dualistic grasping, then we ripen into those 3 kayas, or mature into the 3 kayas. And for as long as we have not purified, there still is this pure and impure aspect of the Nirmana Kaya. So the impure aspect of the Nirmana Kaya, for example, are the sentient beings in the 3 lower realms. Actually, all sentient beings in the 6 realms are actually turkus, or Nirmana Kayas. For the hungry spirits are the turkus of greed, or stinginess. And the hell beings are the turkus, the Nirmanakayas of hatred. And the animals are the turkus of ignorance. So the beings of the 3 lower realms are the turkus, or the Nirmanakayas of the 3 poisons, the 3 afflictive emotions. And then in the higher realms, the gods and the humans are the turkus of pride and attachment, the humans, for example. So really all beings are actually turkus, or Nirmanakayas. For as long as we have not purified the 6 afflictive emotions, we speak about the sentient beings of the 6 realms of samsara. And what makes the mind be impure is the dualistic grasping itself and other. And with this dualistic perception, we accumulate karma. So that then what happens, especially we can see it nowadays, is that as this dualistic grasping increases, the impure mind increases, the self-grasping increases, love and compassion naturally decrease. And as a result of this, there is a lot of suffering in the world, such as the disease and so forth. It is because afflictive emotions or realms are just like a hospital where we can do that. It's also Nirmanakaya. And in the end, once all obscurations are purified, when Buddha nature becomes manifest, then it always is as it is, stainless. And the way to purify it is through cultivating bodhicitta. In this way, we purify our dualistic grasping, and then as a result of bodhicitta then manifests as the various pure appearances of the deities and the Pure Lands and so on. And that is what we call the Sambhogakaya. For the Sambhogakaya, even though the Sambhogakaya may perceive many different things, the Sambhogakaya also knows that all of these appearances are my own self, they're my self-projection. So it is like they're enjoying their own self-projections, and they enjoy them while not grasping at duality, while not seeing all those appearances as separate from themselves. And so we mature into the Sambhogakaya through the practice of the Yidam deity, the visualization and so forth. So first we enter the path of the pratimoksha, where we first cultivate renunciation, and we cultivate renunciation based on a fear of the suffering of the 3 lower realms. And then eventually we realize that as long as I want to be free from suffering, I will not become really liberated unless I become free of self-grasping. So then eventually one enters the path of the bodhisattvas, one applies the antidote of bodhicitta, and through bodhicitta, self-grasping diminishes, and when it has gone away, one can see the nature of the mind. And that is the Vajrayana, where one realizes non-duality. And that is the union of the Sambhogakaya and the Dharmakaya. So the various Pure Lands and the pure forms of the deities appear, and they know that all appearance is the projection of their own mind. For example, it's like a big tree that knows that all the branches and the leaves and the flowers all are part of the tree. And so in a similar way, the Sambhogakaya knows that all appearances and the Pure Lands and so on are just natural appearances, a part of themselves. Because what these Pure Lands really are, the Pure Lands really are a manifestation of bodhicitta. So where do we draw the line between pure and impure then? It is the line between selfishness and the altruistic mind. So it is this selfish mind that has to be purified through the altruistic mind. This is really where practice begins for a person. So then the practitioner looks at themselves, and the body is the Nirmanakaya. And the speech is the Sambhogakaya. So with the speech, we use our speech to, for example, recite different sadhanas or prayers, and we receive different teachings. We receive the words of the guru, and then depending on those words, we practice the meditation and recitation of various deities, and we practice the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment and so forth, the generation stage. And through the generation stage, then, through visualizing ourselves as the deity, we purify the imprints of the body. And then through reciting the deity's mantra, we purify the imprints of speech. And then when the grasping at form and sound becomes purified, then the mind eventually becomes free of dualistic grasping. And when you realize the nature of the mind, it is vast and it pervades wherever space pervades. And then you recognize that the deity is actually the natural radiance of your own mind. When the 5 afflictive emotions are ripened into the 5 wisdoms, they naturally manifest as the Pure Lands and the deities. So this is what will happen when the mind is fully mature. This is when the ice has completely melted and become one with the ocean water. And then you realize the qualities that the ocean possesses. And the ocean doesn't grasp at a duality. So then when you understand that, when you just understand that, then you know that whoever engages in practice, if I engage in practice, I can become liberated. Whoever practices can become liberated. So this will give you some confidence, and you think that I can become truly free. Yes, now I'm not liberated, and there is real suffering, and there really are all these suffering sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara, but it all can become purified. It is all the manifestation of one's own mind. And if I purify the dualistic grasping at self and other in my mind will become just like space. And within space, there is no division. So you can really think it through, and it does make logical sense, really. And then you really gain some confidence, and you can see that I really can become a Buddha. All sentient beings can. And that is when they become matured through the path. And when you see that, then you will be able to see how precious this path of Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana really is, how precious this path is. And then we can also see how many gurus and masters of the past have followed that path and have attained enlightenment, independence on it. And if we follow their example, we can also achieve that. We can see that this has happened before, so it's not a lie. So in this way, you can really develop some trust, some confidence in that. And so when you see this with your reason, then you can also begin to understand and really trust that the nature of all phenomena is the nature of the 3 kayas.
Ok, entonces está continuando con la explicación del Nirmanakaya y dice que el Nirmanakaya tiene un aspecto puro y un aspecto impuro. Y el aspecto impuro se da o se manifiesta cuando no hemos logrado purificar las emociones aflictivas. Por ejemplo, todos los reinos que existen dentro del samsara son una manifestación de este Nirmanakaya. Y los 3 reinos inferiores son una manifestación, son una expresión, en el fondo, de los 3 venenos. La expresión de la codicia está representada por la manifestación, se manifiesta como los seres hambrientos. La expresión del odio se manifiesta con seres que están en los reinos infernales. La expresión de la ignorancia se manifiesta con los reinos de los animales, ¿sí? También el orgullo se manifiesta con los seres de los semidioses, el apego, ¿cierto? El aferramiento, el Nirmanakaya somos nosotros manifestados en este reino de los humanos. Entonces todos los seres nos manifestamos en esta forma de manifestación que es el Nirmanakaya de manera impura porque no hemos purificado las emociones aflictivas. Eso es ese aferramiento dualístico, esa percepción dualística es la que a la vez genera el karma y toda la rueda que hace que nos aparezcamos en el samsara. Ese es el aspecto impuro, ¿cierto? Una mente impura está como permeada por estas negatividades. Y en esa mente impura y de negatividad es donde estamos hoy día con tanto sufrimiento en el mundo y donde está debilitado el amor y la compasión. Ese es el aspecto del Nirmanakaya impuro, que aun cuando es una manifestación de un cuerpo, sufrimos porque todavía estamos no purificando estas emociones afectivas. Entonces los reinos inferiores serían como un lugar para ir a purificar estas emociones afectivas. En el Sambhogakaya, el segundo cuerpo, es un cuerpo donde nosotros podemos percibir muchas más cosas, pero estamos en el gozo, es un cuerpo de gozo, porque ya nos damos cuenta de que este aferramiento, ¿cierto?, tan dual ya no está tan presente, y nos damos cuenta de que todas las apariencias son expresión de mis mismas percepciones, ¿sí? No nos dualizamos, no estamos tanto en el engaño. Y la manera de entrar en este cuerpo del Sambhogakaya es a través de la práctica del Yidam. La práctica del Yidam nos hace incrementar este cuerpo de gozo del Sambhogakaya. ¿Sí? Y aquí habla de los tres caminos, el Pratimoksha, ¿cierto? El camino más temprano, Theravada, que está la renuncia basada en el temor a querer liberarme, pero que eso se perfecciona después en el camino del Bodhisattva, cuando en el fondo la bodhicitta, que es el antídoto al aferramiento, hace que este egoísmo decrezca y nosotros podamos ver nuestra propia naturaleza, que es lo que en el camino del Vajrayana se perfecciona, donde no hay ni una dualidad, vemos todas las apariencias como proyección de la propia mente. Por lo tanto, todas las tierras puras son manifestaciones de esta bodhicitta. Entonces, la distinción que hay acá entre la percepción impura y la pura es en la percepción impura, en el aspecto impuro estamos nosotros basados en nuestro egocentrismo, en nuestro egoísmo. Y esa es la que tenemos que purificar, la mente ególatra. Y cuando estamos en el aspecto puro, estamos en una mente altruista. ¿Sí? Por eso es que el cuerpo entonces es el Nirmanakaya, la palabra se expresa como el Sambhogakaya, donde la podemos utilizar para recitar plegarias, hacer ramas, mantras, etcétera, etcétera. Y aquí habla del estado de generación de la deidad, que es la manera de purificar estas improntas que tenemos respecto de esta dualidad. ¿Sí? En la palabra estamos, cuando recitamos el mantra purificamos la palabra, y cuando hacemos la disolución estamos en esta mente que se libera de la dualidad. Y ahí vemos esta mente vasta como el espacio. Entonces, esta práctica de la deidad que utiliza el Vajrayana es una manera de purificar y entrar en esta mente altruista, donde la mente se expande, se funde en el propio océano y ya pierde este aferramiento dualístico que es el que lo hace estar en este estado de confusión y sufrimiento. Y acá habla Rinpoche respecto de la confianza. Esto es algo que nosotros podemos hacer, podemos purificarnos, está en la capacidad de cada uno poder hacerlo. Y de esa forma es que tenemos que ver y percibir a los maestros que ya antes han hecho este camino para que nosotros podamos adquirir confianza en que de verdad todos podemos ser un Buda. Quizás ahí el énfasis en la importancia de comprometerse con la práctica, porque la práctica es el camino que puede liberarme. Y en la medida que lo vayamos experimentando, vamos a ir adquiriendo esa confianza, así como lo hicieron otras personas y seres antes que nosotros, también nosotros lo podemos hacer.
That we experience if we are not liberated. And then we must understand the bliss, the happiness that comes when we are liberated. And then we have to understand that we can become liberated if we realize the nature of the mind. And so all of this begins with first taking the refuge vow. We take refuge in the 3 jewels. Why do we take refuge? We take refuge in order to be protected from suffering. So first, when we take refuge, we are introduced. So there are the 3 jewels. There is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then you first begin to think, oh, the Buddha must be someone really precious. But then there is so many teachings, and actually the Buddha is not here any longer. But that's really not true at all, because the Buddha is within the Sangha, which is also why we say that of the 3 jewels, the Sangha is really most precious. We need to understand that within the Sangha, the 3 jewels are complete, and that ultimately these qualities are complete within your own mind too. So first we have to clear away our wrong views, our misunderstandings, and partial understandings, and so on, so that a real feeling arises. So all of these doubts and thoughts and so on first have to be eliminated, and we have to develop some trust. So we first cultivate like an inspirational faith, a clear faith, where we recognize the qualities of the 3 jewels. And then recognizing that, we develop a longing faith. So we are longing to be liberated. So during the refuge vow, we are basically asked, so do you want to be free from suffering? Yes, I want to be free from suffering. I long to be free from suffering. That's the longing faith. And then in order to be free from suffering, I have to take refuge in the 3 jewels. Taking refuge is then it becomes the method to free oneself from suffering. So there is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And so people might think that the Buddha isn't here anymore, but actually the Buddha is the mind of the Sangha. Even though a Buddha possesses many qualities, what a Buddha really is, the Buddha has completely abandoned the selfish mind, and the Buddha only thinks about others. The Buddha in the past had incarnated in 500 impure and 500 pure lives, and he practiced during this time only thinking about the benefit of sentient beings, not thinking about himself. And so as a result of that, the Buddha attained enlightenment. His compassion became immeasurable. So a Buddha, in brief, is someone who has immeasurable compassion and no self. It's completely selfless. We, on the other hand, the first thing that always arises is me, this sense of an I. And this is absent in the mind of a Buddha completely. The Buddha's mind is a mind of the 4 immeasurables. So the form, the physical form of the Buddha is not the actual Buddha. The Buddha really is actually the mind. And that is the mind of the Sangha, of the spiritual teacher. No matter how they are and how many there is no spiritual teacher who doesn't possess the 4 immeasurables. So then you realize, oh, the Sangha's mind, that is actually the Buddha. So then you really can say that when you understand that. Milarepa had also said that, is there a Lama who possesses lineage and pith instructions? If so, there should be one that possesses great compassion. So basically, no matter how many great qualities or perfect learning a Sangha may have, what's really most important is love and compassion, is the wish to benefit others. And that's the mind of the Buddha. It's a mind of great compassion. Our mind is one of great self-grasping. So therefore, when we understand that, we can really say the Sangha's mind is the Buddha. So the body of the Sangha is the Sangha. So with the body, a Sangha has abandoned samsaric life, samsaric pleasures, has abandoned the life of a householder and has dedicated their lives to reflection, to learning, reflection, and practice. So that's the Sangha. That's the body, which is the Sangha. The speech is the Dharma. With the speech, the Sangha, the teacher, teaches us the method to become liberated, which is the path of Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana. And so what is it then that the Sangha themselves really dedicate themselves to? What they do is they all learn, they study, they reflect, they practice, they meditate. They debate, they compose, and explain, and so forth, and teach. So this is what they do their entire life, and they only think about the benefit of others. And this is why the Sangha liberates themselves from samsara. So that's their mind. That's the mind of the Buddha, which is great compassion. Actually, there are some people who say that the Buddha didn't have so much compassion. But why? Why do you say that the Buddha doesn't have a lot of compassion? Well, the Buddha, he abandoned his wife, Yashodhara. So how can he do that? He just left her behind. But actually, if the Buddha would not have done that, then the Buddha would have not been able to care for all sentient beings. So anyways, the Buddha cannot really look after his wife Yashodhara, because she also has to follow her own path of karma. But the Buddha knew that if he would attend to his householder life and be with his wife, then he would not be able to take care of all sentient beings. And so he gave up the kingdom and the royal life in his family and dedicated his life to the benefit of others. And this is the strength of the Buddha's teachings. This is why really the Buddha's teachings could not be destroyed. So there have been already centuries and thousands of years that the Buddha's teachings still remain. And there have been many individuals, many people who were against the Dharma and who had wrong views about the Dharma and who were just like barbarians. And nobody was able to bring the Buddha's teachings down. And no matter what was done to the teachings still remain like a victory banner. They still remain victorious. And even if I just think about one single lifetime, you can see how many hardships, how many difficulties the Buddha's teachings really went through. And still nothing could really destroy them. Sakya Pandita also had said that whether it is fire, like magic, and so forth, anyone who tries to ruin the Buddha's teachings is actually only bringing ruin to themselves, but they cannot really bring the teachings down. So, for example, in the past, there were also views like communist views who denied the Dharma, any religion, and say there is no Buddha and it all doesn't exist scientifically and so on. But nowadays, actually, science is approaching Buddhism and they're saying that actually a lot of what the Buddha said, they're finding to be true. So in the end, we can see who really was at loss here. It was clearly them holding these nihilistic views, like the communist views and so on, it's materialistic views. And so this really proves the unfailing nature of the Buddha's teachings. This is one of its great qualities. And so this quality is held by the noble Sangha. And so when you understand that, and then you see a noble Sangha, then you will really be able to think that, oh, his body is the Sangha, it really is. And his speech really is the Dharma, and his mind really is the Buddha. So this kind of aspiration, perception of them will arise within you. And so then you will see any Sangha in the world, following any religion, anyone really who has given up their householder life to follow the Dharma and to practice, you will see them all. This is Sangha, and you will see therefore how precious they really are. So that's the second feeling that arises, and it's that feeling that will open up your mind, and it's that feeling that will close the door to misconceptions and so forth. And this is how then actual faith in the three jewels will arise. And so this is how you really understand. This is what happens when you understand that the three jewels are complete within a single guru.
Ok, entonces acá está hablando de cómo nosotros podemos, que todo el sufrimiento que experimentamos es que porque todavía no estamos completamente liberados, y que para entrar en este camino de la liberación está como primer paso el poder tomar refugio, y este refugio es en las tres joyas. Este refugio quiere decir que nos protege, nos refugiamos, ¿cierto?, del el sufrimiento. ¿Sí? Y ahí están estas tres joyas dadas por el Buda, ¿cierto?, por el Dharma y por la Sangha. Y acá está hablando entonces de las cualidades de las tres joyas, de la confianza que debemos desarrollar para liberarnos. Por eso se nos pregunta cuando tomamos refugio, ¿quién quiere liberarse del sufrimiento? Y es que desarrollamos esta confianza en que a través del refugio en las tres joyas podemos liberarnos. El refugio en las tres joyas es un método para liberarnos del sufrimiento. Entonces el Buda, uno puede pensar, bueno, pero el primer objeto de refugio, el Buda, es muy precioso, pero ya no existe, ya no está. Y en realidad el Buda representa la mente de la Sangha. ¿Sí? Representa esta mente. ¿Cómo es la mente de la Sangha? Está representada por una mente que abandonó esta mente egoísta del yo, ¿sí? Y que fue lo que hizo el Buda. Él renació, tuvo 500 renacimientos impuros y 500 renacimientos puros. Como producto de eso, él finalmente pudo estar completamente salió de esta mente egoísta y obtuvo esta mente altruista de estar completamente volcado al beneficio de los otros. Esa bodhicitta, esa mente altruista, es la que le permite obtener la iluminación, su compasión, ¿sí? Entonces, lo que significa una mente, la mente del Buda, significa, por un lado, una mente plena de compasión y una mente libre de la mente de egoísmo y de aferramiento, donde ya no existe el yo ni lo mío. Una mente basada en los cuatro inconmensurables. Entonces, el Buda es la mente de la Sangha, ¿sí? No hay ningún maestro que no pueda, en el fondo, tener estas cualidades de la mente de un Buda de compasión. Están los cuatro inconmensurables, etc. Entonces, la Sangha, su característica es la mente de un Buda, es estar completa imbuida de este amor y de compasión y de beneficiar a los demás, que es una mente, claro, distinta en apariencia a lo que sería nuestra mente egoísta y de aferramiento, ¿sí? Y también esta mente del Buda que está presente en la Sangha es una renunciado a la vida samsárica y que ha dedicado su vida a la práctica. Entonces esto también es una cualidad que tiene la Sangha que nosotros debemos valorar. La palabra, ¿cierto? El segundo, el Buda, el Dharma, que es la palabra, el segundo objeto de refugio, está representado por esta enseñanza del método. Y el método, la práctica, está contenido en el camino Pratimoksha, en el camino del Bodhisattva y en el camino del Vajrayana, ¿sí? Donde acá nos dedicamos a estudiar, a contemplar, a meditar, a hacer debates, a enseñar, etcétera, etcétera, todo con el propósito de abandonar a otros. Y acá hace un paréntesis Rinpoche diciendo que para muchas personas a lo mejor puede parecer que la vida del Buda no fue tan compasiva, porque abandonó a su familia, pero en realidad esa fue... voy a seguir porque...
We realize that it is that what we really must become liberated from in order to be free from suffering is this I that wants to be free from suffering. Because this I, this self-grasping, is the seed of all the other 6 afflictive emotions. And unless we eliminate self-grasping, we can never be really free from suffering. So when one then finally understands that, one enters the bodhisattva path. And in the bodhisattva path, then one takes the bodhisattva vow from the master, and then one is instructed to cultivate bodhicitta. And then gradually bodhicitta destroys self-grasping. And so you see that master, the body as the Sangha, the speech as the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. So when you think about the mind being the Buddha, for example, when you first take the refuge vow from a master, and that's the first time when faith arises. And faith arises when you understand the qualities of the Sangha. And that means all the Sangha, not just your Lama or your friend, but all the Sangha. If you only think it's just this Lama, then this kind of devotion actually can change easily. One day you will turn away from it. So it's better to see all the Sangha, all of their qualities. So when you see it in this way, having faith in all the Sanghas being the embodiments of the 3 jewels, by seeing their qualities, that opens up your mind and faith really arises. If you do not understand that point, then even if I would speak a lot and teach a lot, it would be really pointless. So first, when you practice, you must cultivate renunciation. So you want to be free from suffering. And then you want to have a method to free yourself. So then faith arises because you want to have this method. There is a supplication by Guru Rinpoche where he says that when you hear the story, the history, then inspiration will arise within you. You will become inspired. A clear faith arises. When you hear, for example, the life story of the Buddha, then you realize that how amazing the Buddha really was and the things that he did. You will see his incredible qualities. And when you see these qualities, faith arises. And then you see that, for example, one of those qualities is that the Buddha is one who is completely liberated from suffering and therefore can bring others to liberation as well. So that's really the quality that you see. And the Buddha is someone who has completely given up all self-concern and only cared for sentient beings. That's the quality of the Buddha. So, for example, when you understand that and you do a practice like, for example, the Nyungne one time in the section of the Sochong Bao taking, there's this term, it says that he carries the burden, and that means that he has given up all self-concern and he takes on the burden or the care of all sentient beings. So when you hear these qualities, first faith arises. And then when you begin to trust, when trusting faith arises, so then this supplication by Guru Rinpoche continues, when trusting faith arises, the blessings will enter your mind. So then you want to engage in the path, you want to enter the path. So you enter the path of the Pratimoksha, and then you enter the Bodhisattva path, and then you enter the Vajrayana path. So then having entered first the Pratimoksha and the Bodhisattva paths, you realize that only through these paths, it will still take you like 5 to 7 or however many lifetimes to attain enlightenment. So then finally, you really understanding the quality of the Dharma, then you will want to enter the path of the Vajrayana. And then when you have entered the path of the Vajrayana, in this context, you see the Guru as the embodiment of the 3 roots, which is the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini. And so here the Guru's body is the Lama, the speech is the Yidam, because with the speech, the Guru shows you the path of the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana. He teaches you the generation and completion stages. He gives you instructions on the channels, winds, and drops, and so forth. And so therefore, the speech is the Yidam. So we practice the Yidam through the Guru's speech. And then the Guru's mind is the Dakini, because the Dakini represents emptiness. The Dharmakaya is also referred to as the Great Mother, and the Great Mother is the nature of emptiness. So when you really see the Guru, then when you understand that, then you can also say that my Guru also is the embodiment of the 3 roots. So my Guru is the embodiment of the 3 jewels, and he is also the embodiment of the 3 roots. His qualities really are incredible. So thinking in this way, again and again, faith arises by seeing these qualities that are all complete within the Guru. So again, when you have entered the path of the secret mantrayana, then you also must understand the Guru to be the embodiment of the 3 roots.
Ok, entonces acá está hablando ahora del Pratimoksha, que es el camino de la liberación individual y de la liberación del ego, del yo, donde ahí se asienta la semilla de todas las 6 emociones afectivas. Y es un camino importante porque a la medida que yo no elimino el autoaferramiento, ¿cierto? Voy a estar siempre preso en esta cadena de sufrimiento. Luego habla del camino del bodhisattva, donde nosotros tomamos el voto de cultivar la bodhicitta. La bodhicitta es el antídoto hacia el aferramiento al ego, destruye el egoísmo, ¿sí? Y es a través de esta práctica que aumenta la fe al entender las cualidades de la sangha. Y esto de ver las cualidades de la sangha se refiere a toda la sangha, no solo a mis cercanos o a mi maestro, porque si yo estoy en este aferramiento, en esta contaminación, finalmente esto va a no resultar en algo positivo, sino que acá estamos pensando en la confianza que uno tiene en la sangha, en esta sangha que contiene a las 3 joyas. A esa fe y a esa confianza se refiere. Y aquí también habla de cultivar la renuncia al sufrimiento, o sea que al entrar el camino uno hace 2 compromisos. Uno, a renunciar al sufrimiento y a tomar un método para liberarnos. ¿Sí? Y acá entonces habla de una súplica de Guru Rinpoche que dice que cuando se escuchan las historias de los maestros, las historias de la vida del Buda, se aumenta, se incrementa la inspiración. Cuando uno se concentra en las cualidades de un Buda, por ejemplo, que ha estado completamente liberado del sufrimiento, entonces uno puede inspirarse y desarrollar esta fe y esta confianza. Y cuando uno desarrolla fe y confianza, entonces recibe en nuestra propia mente las bendiciones de esos seres que están ya en un estado de iluminación. Entonces dice que para entrar al camino, acá entramos al camino del Pratimoksha y del Bodhisattva, que es un camino que sin duda toma muchas vidas, y por lo tanto, cuando nosotros logramos realizar estas cualidades del maestro, y de que este maestro personifica los 3 cuerpos, nos vemos más inclinados a tomar este camino del Vajrayana, porque nos damos cuenta que es un camino más como rápido, efectivo, en el sentido de que en el maestro están contenidas las 3 raíces, ¿sí? El cuerpo del maestro es el lama, la palabra del maestro está representado por el yidam, porque a través de la palabra del maestro es que nosotros recibimos instrucciones de cómo practicar con la deidad, recibimos instrucciones respecto de cómo trabajar con los canales, gotas y energías, y a través de la mente del maestro nosotros podemos llegar a realizar a la dakini, que la dakini significa el dharmakaya o la vacuidad. ¿Sí? Esa es la característica de esta madre o de la madre vacuidad. Eso estaba hablando. De la confianza en las tres joyas. Y lo que está haciendo mucho énfasis es en cómo en el camino Vajrayana nosotros vemos en el gurú a la personificación de estas tres raíces, o de los tres cuerpos, pero tres raíces se está refiriendo a esto último que explicó del cuerpo siendo el lama, la palabra siendo el yidam y la mente del maestro como expresión de la dakini o la vacuidad dharmakaya.
사제 공리제도 송들이야. 사제 송들이 사제리셔. 이 송답지들이 있다. 다 송이 담을지 또 버리게. 송이 담을 도들이 남 송들이 되니 난 제가 제다 터지요게. 남한테 송들이 담으셔. 이 남송 터지 짜치고들이라고. 짜치고는들 보아는 거요. 이 제다를 남 송이 담을 하고 와야지.
So it is said that the path of the secret mantra of the Vajrayana is the swift path, and the path of the Patimoksha and the Bodhisattvas, these are the longer paths. And the reason why the Vajrayana is the swift path is, it is said that in the Vajrayana it is said that by defeating the four Mara demons, may the body ripen or be liberated as the deity, the form of the deity. So also Sakya Pandita had said, then if this, in this ocean of suffering, inside this ocean of suffering, one's body, its vessel, becomes one's greatest enemy. And so it is because all the suffering that we experience is really somehow related to our body. All of our pain and our sickness and so forth arises because we have a body. And then in the future, if we continue to accumulate negative karma, we will continue to bring these karmic imprints with us. And then again, they will arise depending on another body. So like this, it says in this prayer, may the demon of the aggregate of the four demons, may the demon of the aggregate become liberated through arising as the form of the deity. So we overcome this imprint of the body by practicing the deity, which is what makes the Vajrayana the swift path. So we visualize ourselves in the form of the deity. We practice the generation stage. And in this way, the dualistic perception, the temporary dualistic perception becomes gradually purified. And in the Vajrayanam, there are 4 different kinds of generation stage corresponding to 4 different ways in which we can take birth. So if you practice the Yidam deity and visualize yourself as the Yidam continuously, then gradually these ordinary imprints of your ordinary body become gradually purified or melted like ice melting. And eventually the deity will always be in your mind. You never again forget about the deity. Then it becomes just like a mother never forgetting about her only child. The deity is always there, clearly with you. So then naturally things begin to appear in a pure way. There's always the pure vision of the deity that's always there. There are some people actually who really see even this human world as an actual pure land. And because of that, it has to do with whether or not a person has purified their channels and their elements and so on. So whether or not things appear that way now, the appearances, whatever appears in our life really is the form of the deity. So this is what we habituate to when we visualize the deity. And so through visualizing the deity, the ordinary imprints of the body become purified. And then by reciting the deity's mantra, the ordinary imprints of speech or sound become purified. And then the mind becomes purified through cultivating bodhicitta. And in this way, it is a swift path, because having purified all those imprints of body, speech, and mind, then later, after you have died and you come into the second bardo, that is where you then will actually attain enlightenment, which is Sangye in Tibetan. And this term Sang means that all of these means clear away or awaken. And what is cleared away then are all these thick layers of habitual imprints. If we keep them in our mind, if we continue to reinforce those habitual imprints, then we bring them to our next life, and further more imprints are placed into the mind stream. And as a result, we keep wandering in samsara endlessly. And so if the mind is free of dualistic grasping, and all there is in the mind is this pure vision of the deity, then these imprints all become purified. So what we call this pure illusory body is actually a mind that is free of dualistic grasping. In order to be free of dualistic grasping, we first have to understand the view, the true nature of the mind. So that's the first thing that we need to understand. We need to understand that the mind, within the mind, there is no self and no other, and the mind is all pervasive like space. That's how it really is. But it is just because we are confused by the dualistic perception of self and other that we temporarily wander in samsara. So if you only understand that in the beginning, you practice the generation stage on the basis of this understanding. And that will mature into the pure illusory body. And then that leads to enlightenment in the second bardo after death. And so that is then when this demon of the aggregates becomes defeated, and you have matured into the pure form of the deity. And this form is just like a rainbow. The pure illusory body is just like a rainbow. The impure illusory body is material matter of flesh, blood, and bones. How it is illusory, for example, we can see by looking at our dreams. We engage in all sorts of activities in our dreams in an illusory body. It is a mental body that we create in our dreams, But just like now, we are bringing all of our habitual imprints into the dream, and we follow our thoughts of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And then because of that, we believe in the true existence of what appears, and so the mind becomes confused. That's the impure illusory body. The pure illusory body is the clear appearance of the deity. And the deity practice has various aspects, such as the pure appearance of the deity, the clear appearance of the deity, then the recollection of purity and the divine pride or the stability. And so then, as a result of practicing the deity in this way, eventually all appearances will actually appear as pure. So this is really where we can kind of draw the line between pure and impure. So when you understand that and practice in this way, you will find some certainty in your mind with regards to the instructions that you have received from the guru. So through the guru's speech, the guru instructs you on the qualities of, for example, the generation stage, and then you understand them. So that's also a quality of the guru. And so so that is why it is said that the speech of the guru is so much more precious than the body. Actually, the Buddha himself had said that. He said that my own body, the body is not so precious. What's really precious are my words. And the Buddha himself actually said that because the words are more precious than the body, one shouldn't even place a Buddha statue on top of Buddha's scriptures, the words, because the words are even more precious. And so when you really hear these words of the Buddha, again, you find some certainty in your mind with regard to the Buddha's qualities, and your mind opens up yet again, and trust arises, that and respect for the Buddha's teachings arises. For example, when you see the scriptures, you will feel that, oh, these are the actual words of the Buddha. And the Buddha also had said in the past that in the future, in the degenerate age, I will appear in the last 500 years of the degenerate age, I will appear in the form of the scriptures. So when you really believe what the Buddha said, then when you see the Buddha's scriptures, the words, you will actually see them as a manifestation of the actual Buddha himself. So this is how we can understand that how through the words, how the words are related to the Yidam deity, because the words teach the Dharma, and the Dharma is these instructions on the Yidam deity and so on. And then the instructions, the words themselves are actually Buddha. And so when you understand this, you really will attain certainty in your mind that my guru's speech really is the Yidam. Then you will really understand. And that's really the result to be attained in terms of the three roots here. To understand that the guru's speech is very precious and its nature is the Yidam deity.
Ok, entonces acá está hablando de por qué el camino del mantra secreto es el camino que se le llama el camino rápido, el camino veloz, a diferencia del camino del Pratimoksha y del Bodhisattva, que se considera un camino más largo. Acá en el camino del Vajrayana, ¿cuál es el método? Uno tiene que vencer, se llama los 4 maras, ¿no? Uno de esos 4 maras son los agregados. Los agregados que nos dan esta sensación de un cuerpo físico realmente existente al cual nosotros nos aferramos, ¿sí? Si lo pensamos así, todo el sufrimiento proviene de la identificación con este cuerpo, todo lo que es el envejecimiento, la enfermedad, el dolor, la muerte, tiene que ver con la identificación con este propio cuerpo, y todos los karmas negativos se van plasmando en estas improntas kármicas, se van manifestando y se van quedando en este cuerpo, o se manifiestan en vidas posteriores también en un cuerpo, ¿sí? Entonces la manera de liberarse y de purificar estos agregados es cuando nosotros hacemos la práctica y nos visualizamos como la deidad. La práctica de visualización o de identificación de nosotros mismos como la deidad es lo que nos libera de este mara de los agregados del cuerpo, es el estado de generación, ¿sí? Porque el estado de generación nos purifica la percepción dualista. Y acá habla de que hay varios estados de generación. Uno de esos estados de generación es como visualizarse como el Yidam, y el valor que tiene es que todas las improntas ordinarias se van purificando, se van disolviendo como un hielo, ¿sí? Se van derritiendo. La deidad está, al estar la deidad en tu mente, disuelve las improntas de los agregados. Y esto es como una madre que siempre va a estar allí, ¿sí? Siempre va a estar allí. Entonces nos damos cuenta de que vamos percibiendo también, así como nos vamos percibiendo nosotros mismos de la naturaleza pura de la deidad, vamos percibiendo también todos los fenómenos y todo el mundo como la deidad. Y aquí tiene que ver con el trabajo que hacemos de la purificación de los canales, la energía, la gota.
For the clarity is that when the deity appears clearly in your mind, even though it might appear in your mind, then often the mind can't stay still because a lot of thoughts arise in the mind. So then when we can't stay still, then we reflect on the purity, the pure qualities of the deity's appearance. So for example, the peaceful deities appear with a peaceful attire, and the wrathful deities with wrathful ornaments and so on. And for example, the peaceful ornaments often are related to the 6 paramitas, and the wrathful attire is related to the purification of the afflictive emotions into their natural state without having to abandon them, and so on. So each of these implements and elements of the deity, the outer appearance of the deity, represents a certain quality in the deity's mind. And so then you reflect one by one each of these, think about the nature of each of these ornaments and implements and what they really mean and what they really represent and what quality it represents in the deity's mind. And so then again, faith in the guru's teachings, in the speech, arises, because the only reason why you can understand all of that is because the guru taught it to you. You don't know it really on your own. If nobody ever tells you what all of that means, and you're just looking at a tanka or a statue, you just will see it as some kind of antique, like an old object, but you won't really understand the significance of what it really stands for, what it really means. And so in order to see that, we gradually have to purify our mind and eliminate the proliferating thoughts that arise in our practice. It is because these thoughts arise and we believe in the true existence of appearances that again we become confused in our practice. So therefore, this is where the purity comes in. When we reflect on the pure nature of the deity, then all of these clinging to the true existence of appearances becomes transformed into emptiness. So actually, first impurity is made pure, and then the purity itself is transformed into emptiness. So that's the purity. And third is the stability, which is to really recognize that I really am the deity. So when you practice the deity, then you know that you are a deity because you have been introduced to that by the guru's speech again. The guru told you that the nature of your own Buddha nature and the nature of the deity's mind are actually indivisible. So the deity is indivisible from your own mind. And when these temporary fixations of self and other and so on have become purified, that you will realize that as your mind becomes completely pure. And then you experience how the deity's mind and your own mind really are actually indivisible. So the speech is the yidam, and the mind is the dakini. So then how the dakini arises, the dakini represents emptiness. So it arises when all dualistic grasping at various phenomena that appear is purified and kind of dissolved within the expanse of non-duality, of non-dual space, the true nature of the mind. And this is why the Vajrayana path is also referred to as the swift path. And in terms of when we actually come to this pure kind of non-dual expanse of kind of space expanse of the mind is when you're sleeping, and so you're in a deep sleep state, and just before you are waking up, you're having a dream, and it is that in this kind of twilight zone between the dream and the waking up, you're still in a sleep state. This is where this is where you find awakening, and this is what the guru taught. And so again, you recognize that this is the words of the Buddha are really true. This is the result that I can actually attain. So when you think about it in this way, trust again arises and faith in the guru arises. And then when you really gain some certainty, you realize that what the guru taught is really true. So the guru really is the embodiment of the three roots.
Ok, entonces acá está hablando de las tres cualidades que tiene cuando nos visualizamos como la deidad, o los tres aspectos. La primera es la claridad, la pureza y la estabilidad. En la claridad es cómo aparece en la mente la deidad y cómo las cualidades puras de la deidad se manifiestan. ¿Sí? Cuando aparecen los aspectos pacíficos de la deidad en mi mente, son las representaciones de las 6 paramitas. Y cuando aparecen las deidades iracundas, están representando la purificación de las emociones negativas en el estado natural. Entonces, esta claridad es como la capacidad que nosotros tenemos de visualizar en nuestra mente las cualidades de la deidad. ¿Sí? Y esas cualidades de la deidad las hemos recibido a través de las instrucciones del maestro. Por eso es tan importante, más que el cuerpo del maestro, la palabra del maestro. Es allí donde nos va direccionando en la práctica. ¿Sí? El segundo aspecto, entonces, la pureza, donde nosotros tenemos la posibilidad de purificar y transformar las emociones aflictivas, verlas de la naturaleza pura de la deidad. Cada pensamiento que surge, verlo como una apariencia, no como una apariencia real, identificarnos en y aferrarnos, etc., sino que verlo de la misma naturaleza pura de la deidad. Ahí es donde transformamos esta negatividad en la naturaleza de la deidad. Y el tercer aspecto de la visualización es la estabilidad, donde nosotros desarrollamos la confianza, el orgullo de ser la deidad. Y esto también lo hemos recibido, dadas las instrucciones del maestro, que nos dice que sí, efectivamente, la naturaleza de la deidad y mi naturaleza de la mente son de la misma cualidad. ¿Sí? Entonces acá refuerza los tres aspectos del maestro. El cuerpo está representado por el maestro, la palabra por el yidam y la mente por esta dakini, que es el aspecto de la vacuidad. Cuando el aferramiento es purificado, esa es la manifestación de la dakini, o de este tercer aspecto de la mente del Buda. Aquí habla también de cuando uno está en soñando, durmiendo, y empieza a soñar, y en ese espacio justo entre el sueño y el despertar, que allí hay una oportunidad de reconocer la naturaleza ilusoria de la realidad. Hay una oportunidad para reconocer este despertar. También habló anteriormente de cuando estamos soñando también, como nosotros entramos en este estado de sueño, ese sería como el cuerpo ilusorio, pero impuro en el sentido de que llevamos y arrastramos nuestras improntas de tendencias habituales, por lo tanto nos confundimos en creer que el sueño es realidad. Esa es como la manifestación de un cuerpo ilusorio que tenemos de sueño, pero contaminado. El cuerpo ilusorio acá se refiere a cuando nosotros nos damos cuenta de que toda manifestación es de la naturaleza pura de la deidad. ¿Sí? La manifestamos, la vemos, pero vemos también a la vez su naturaleza no inherente.
So the Guru's speech is the Sambhogakaya, and so also in this world, there's a lot of different kinds of worldly kind of wrong views. There's over 360 of those views, but they're all basically worldly views. And worldly means actually the term in Tibetan, the one syllable of the worldly here, worldly actually means bound to fear and suffering. And so whatever is worldly is bound to fear and suffering. And why are we afraid? It is because there is self-grasping. And so regarding this self, even if one were to destroy the entire planet with a nuclear bomb, they couldn't destroy the self. It's still there. And again, even the world is gone, again, one follows this self, and again, one keeps going around in circles in the three realms of samsara. So the entire outer universe, this world, is compounded and therefore impermanent. And eventually it will come to an end. So it is subject to disintegration. And people think that when they look at this world, is this huge universe that is so stable and it's always going to be there. But actually, this is really that kind of worldly view. It's not at all going to be always there. It's actually just like dust already. So it is just that now it still appears to us. In fact, we don't even have to wait for the universe to come to an end, for it to come to an end, because the moment when our consciousness leaves this material body, so when you leave this world, when you die, then the world is already gone. It doesn't even have to come to an end before that. So this is how it is when we see it from a worldly perspective. So through the Guru's words, we are introduced to that all things, this entire world is compounded and subject to disintegration, and therefore it's impermanent. And when you really recognize that, sometimes it even appears as though there is no outer world. It's like it's almost like it's not even there in reality. So this is what we call like a worldly being. So this self-grasping, as we said, cannot be destroyed by even a bomb in this world. So no one can destroy self-grasping, it will go on. So then the only thing that can destroy self-grasping is the altruistic mind of bodhicitta. And when that arises, then the dualistic perception is cleared away. And so you realize non-dual primordial awareness. You realize that your consciousness is primordial awareness. You recognize the view of Mahamudra, or the ultimate truth, the Buddha Vajradhara. It is also said that defeating the Mara of the Lord of Death, may I attain power over immortal life. Then there is no more fear of death. That is when you realize that the mind actually is beyond birth and death. And so then we can see there are some who haven't realized that, and who, due to negative karma and fear of their own suffering, even take their own life because they cannot bear their suffering. So actually, so what we learn from the guru is that you cannot really die. The mind is beyond birth and death. The guru introduces you to the space-like nature of the mind, which is your Dharma, the Dharmakaya. And so then you realize that when you look at your mind, based on these instructions, that within space there is no division. So your own mind is indivisible from the guru's mind. And when you realize that, then you have realized the fourth kaya, the Svabhavika kaya, or essence kaya, which we are introduced to in the context of Mahamudra or Dzogchen teachings and so on. But basically, it is to see the true nature of your mind. And when you see the true nature of your mind, you naturally realize non-duality. It becomes like space, or just like when you have those two holes in your hand, you make those two holes with your fingers, and then you open them up, then you have no longer two holes, there's only one space. Or you have two vases and then they break, there's only one empty space. So when you realize the actual nature of your mind, then you realize non-duality. And then this aspiration is accomplished. May the demon of the Lord of Death be conquered, and may I attain, by conquering the demon of the Lord of Death, may I attain power over immortal life. And also that again comes from the guru's speech. And so then secretly, the guru is also the embodiment of the three kayas. The body is the nirmana kaya, the speech the sambhoga kaya, and the mind is the dhamma kaya. The empty essence of the mind is the dharma kaya. The natural clarity, the sambhoga kaya. Or actually, recently during the Milarepa teachings, Milarepa actually put it very simple. So he said that non-conceptuality, non-thought is the Dharmakaya, bliss itself is Sambhogakaya, and clarity is the Nirmanakaya, and the innate state is the Svabhavika-kaya. So these are all qualities that are complete within your own mind. The mind that is free of thought is the Dharmakaya. And when you are free of thought and you abide in the thought-free Dharmakaya, you will feel very blissful. And from this bliss arises the Sambhogakaya. And the clarity is the Nirmanakaya. Nirmanakaya engages in the benefit of sentient beings in the form of various Nirmanakayas, for example, the incarnated Nirmanakaya and so forth, or anything that appears naturally, like the clouds in the sky and the rain falling down, and then the the flowers and the trees and the medicinal herbs and so on that grow, all of this grows effortlessly and naturally. So these are all qualities that are complete within your own mind and that you recognize through the Guru's instruction. So that is a quality of the Guru, but also it's your own quality when you practice and you realize the nature of your mind, when you realize Mahamudra, what you realize is that all of these qualities that are complete in the Guru are actually also present within your own mind stream. And so this is how we understand the 4 kayas of the Guru. And so in brief, when you really think about the qualities of the Guru, then sincere devotion for the Guru arises, just like between Marpa and Milarepa. And when such devotion arises, then the cities, when devotion arises, then the cities, the accomplishments will be attained. So that is the instruction on the Guru's 4 kayas. And so these are all qualities that arise from the Guru.
Ok, entonces estamos hablando acá de las visiones erróneas mundanas y que se sustentan o que se manifiestan de 2 maneras, el temor que nosotros tenemos y en el sufrimiento. ¿Y a qué se debe esto? Al aferramiento que nosotros tenemos hacia un self. Entonces aún dice que ni una bomba atómica, nada puede destruir el self que nos hace permanecer en el sí mismo, digo, el ego, que nos hace permanecer en el samsara. Lo único que puede destruir este self es la bodhicitta, es la mente bodhicitta. Y acá está hablando de reconocer nuestra propia mente como la sabiduría primordial de Vajradhara. Como está hablando cómo surge la confianza en los 4 kayas a través de las historias de los maestros del linaje. Y ahí entendió cuán preciosa el Dharma es, cuán precioso el Gurú es. Si no entendemos lo precioso que es el Dharma, no vamos a poder entender lo precioso que es el maestro. Y por esto es importante escuchar sobre las historias del Dharma y de los distintos maestros. Así que les agradezco mucho a todos por esto. Sí, y a ver si podemos esperar un poquito para poder explicarles lo último que él dijo respecto de los 4 kayas. Sí, y que Milarepa lo explicaba de manera muy sucinta, lo de los 4 kayas. El Dharma kaya se refería a cuando estaba nuestra mente libre de pensamientos, el Sambhoga kaya es cuando estábamos en la mente de gozo. Perdón, el Dharma kaya sí, es cuando estábamos libres de pensamientos, el Sambhoga kaya es cuando estaba nuestra mente en el gozo, el Nirmana kaya es cuando la mente estaba en la claridad y de esa manera podíamos beneficiar de distintas formas a los seres, y el 4º kaya, que es el Svabhavika kaya, es la naturaleza última de la mente. ¿Sí? Entonces estamos hablando de estos 4 kayas como las cualidades de reconocer en la propia mente estas cualidades que mencioné, y estas las podemos reconocer a través de las instrucciones que recibimos del maestro o del guru. Finalmente estas cualidades y las cualidades del guru y de mi mente son las mismas. ¿Sí? Y aquí hablaba después Rinpoche de cómo él desarrollaba devoción en realizar estos 4 cuerpos del gurú que están en nosotros mismos, y que debido a la desarrollo de esta devoción, nosotros obteníamos los siddhis o los logros. ¿Sí? Y por eso era tan importante, decía él, escuchar las enseñanzas de los maestros como Marpa, Milarepa, etc. Eso creo que en resumen fue lo que explicó respecto de los 4 cuerpos, dio mucho énfasis en el rol que tenía el maestro, y el maestro sobre todo a través de su palabra, que era mucho más importante que el cuerpo físico del maestro, era la enseñanza que podíamos recibir, sobre todas las instrucciones que nos daba, sobre todo hizo mucho énfasis en la visualización y la práctica o el método Vajrayana como el camino más rápido para obtener la liberación, donde nosotros nos visualizábamos como la deidad, y esa era una manera de poder purificar esta percepción errónea de separación entre nosotros y los demás. Básicamente eso. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Paz. Nos vemos mañana. Para Chile es a las 2 de la tarde, para los otros países al mismo horario que hoy. Gracias, Paz, por la traducción.
Bueno, gracias. Chao.